Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here today. We have a special guest with us. We have Ayelet Polonsky, a manifestation mentor who I recently met when I was in New York for the Hagim. Hi, Ayelet. Welcome to our podcast. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Rina. I love this. I feel like we're just like two girlfriends catching up. That's what it feels like. So natural.
Totally. So, if people want to find you, what's the name of your website and how do you spell it just in case?
Awesome. Yeah. So my website is www.ayeletpolonsky.com. So that's Ayelet Polonsky, Polonsky.com.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what you do with manifestation work and how you help people. And I know that you have a special program coming up. Can you tell people a little bit about it and how they could sign up?
Yeah, totally. So the course, it's a 5-week course called Manifest Lifelong Love. And it's geared towards anyone, men and women, who are looking to finally manifest their forever love. I know in like the world that we live in, people are just so over being ghosted. They're over just meeting people who are non-committal or toxic, to say the least. So, this course, we dive in over the course of 5 weeks and we work through all of the blockages that might be getting in a way from a person meeting someone who is actually healthy and wholesome. Because what people often don't realize is like we manifest according to what is a vibrational match to us, right? So we start to clear away and shed layers that no longer serve us, who we like all the layers that aren't who we truly are to get back to that place of self-confidence, self-worth, and deserving of finally manifesting their true partner.
Yeah, I think that's really essential as a matchmaker. I work with a lot of singles, and I hear a lot of them saying, I've tried everything, I've done everything, and you realize that everything to them means externally, like the apps, the events, the matching, like everything externally, but going inwards, which is really where it starts, that's really what manifests the love that they want to come into their lives. That's the kind of work that's missing for a lot of people who haven't yet met their life partners. So I think it's really necessary and important to help guide people how to go inwards to really access true love from the inside out versus from the outside in, right?
Exactly.
So I really love that. So I want to start our conversation today with learning more about your personal journey of how you reached spiritual awakening and how you got to where you are today. I really enjoyed your podcast. I was super fascinated by a lot of the stuff that you have on there and the incredible guests you have on there. What's the name of your podcast?
The manifestation method.
Yeah, I thought that that's a really great way for a lot of people to get a taste of your approach and your teachings and practical advice, lots of practical advice, and actually some really incredible guests. I listened to the episode with Kathy Heller.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that one blew me away.
So good. Oh yeah, I've been really blessed to have some amazing guests on the show, and like
Yeah,
it's such an honor because like we get to dive deep on and the whole idea of it being like the manifestation method is that it really is a methodology. Like I've broken down what is really like a very big esoteric idea. For many people, they don't even believe in manifestation, although I have a lot to say about that later, because we're always manifesting whether we like it or not, and that's just a universal truth. And so it's been such a blessing to like receive feedback from my listeners on how they are really able to like break something so big down into like bite-sized concept, ideas, tools. I offer like meditations, all sorts of things to make it a methodology that people can really implement in their everyday life. So thank you.
yeah, I thought it was really good. So I'm really curious to hear how you got to where you are today, where you help people with manifesting. Like, where did the spiritual journey start for you?
I mean, I'd like to say it started the day I was born, right? Because it's like Nothing happens in a vacuum. And my upbringing really led or carved out the path for me to feel like I just needed to have some sort of like emotional regulation tools under my belt because that was not something that I necessarily had growing up. And as a child, I'd often find myself like locking myself in my bedroom, crying to myself, needing to self-regulate, and not as a result of anybody's fault, right? It's like everyone has the tools that they have and are able to show up in the way they're able to show up. So this isn't a blame game. It's just that was my reality. And so once I became a teenager and felt a lot of like internal resistance and it's like I always wore a smile on my face, but I was never fully happy. There was a lot of like pent up anger and big feelings, and I never learned what to do with those feelings or how to channel them in a healthy way. And so when I was 20, I woke up to like 80 something missed calls, text messages, and I like look at my phone and I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I'm not gonna like even look at that right now. It was like first thing in the morning. I had just opened my eyes. And so like what did I do? I was 20 years old. Instead, I went on social media and I'm on my computer and I start scrolling and I see one post after another that said, rest in peace, Dawn. We love you, Dawn. You will always be remembered, Dawn. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, who the heck is Dawn? And then all of a sudden, a picture pops up of one of my close friends, Danielle. And the information hit me that she was meeting up with some friends the night before because she was stood up by the guy she was dating. So her best friend was like, okay, you know what? He won't hang out with you, but come, I'll hang out with you. Let's go to the local Starbucks. There's a bunch of like guys on motorcycles that meet there every Thursday night. Let's just go have some fun. So they meet up there, and Dawn um, was convinced against her will because her gut was telling her not to get on the back of this bike with this random stranger. But her best friend, who invited her out that night, convinced her to get back on the back of the bike. This was in New Jersey, and they were all supposed to just cross the George Washington Bridge, go into New York City, grab a quick bite to eat, and come right back. Well, Dawn never came back because as Dawn and the guy who was driving her bike were up ahead on the George Washington Bridge, her best friend was a little bit further behind. And her best friend, as she's crossing the bridge, sees the pink jacket in the middle of the bridge that Dawn was wearing that night. And so her best friend, will call her D. She hopped off her bike. She sees up ahead Danielle in the middle of the bridge. She grabs Danielle in her arms, and Danielle at this point was still alive. Dawn looks into her best friend's eyes and she says, D, I love you, and this is not your fault. And then she died in her best friend's arms that night.
What happened?
He was the guy who was riding the bike was trying to show off, do some sort of like bike trick and slipped on, I guess, some like oil or something, and the
Oh,
bike went flying. She went flying off the bike. She
oh,
was she was only wearing a half head helmet, so it split open,
oh.
and yeah,
How old
yeah.
was she?
She was 20. She was my
Oh,
age. She was like 19 or 20. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking. It was hard, but she's like, I promise you, she's a guardian angel because I bring her into my work and I'm all the time just saying like, Dawn, this is for you. Like this is for you so that your name does not live in vain. Like you are the reason that I set off on this spiritual path. Like her passing and the way it shook me to my core. Like I'm 20 years old. I had just heard the news and I remember this voice, this like sensation, like pulsating through my body. And this like voice said, Ayelet, you've been alive for 20 years, but you have not yet begun to live. You're about to start today. And so that was my spiritual awakening. I had never experienced up until that point any sort of like real tragic loss of that magnitude. So I woke up. That I had woken up at age 20. I had gone from being, super like materialistic. I love shopping. I loved partying in New York City. I loved hanging out with my friends. I had like That was my upbringing. Um, and I was just like, okay, there has to be more to life than shallow living, right? And like, what else is out there? And so I set out on this journey to really answer the question, like, what is the meaning of life and why was I put here?
Big question.
Big question. And I think all of us at some point, if you haven't asked yourself that already, you should ask yourself that question because it'll set you off on a magical, miraculous journey, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And by the way, I mean, even people who do grow up with spiritual upbringing and religious upbringing still need to ask those questions, right? Because
totally.
the hows and the whats of religion don't necessarily explain the whys. I'm reflecting on my own journey that was around the same age as well, where that's when I discovered Kabbalah because I had been observant my whole life, but I wanted to understand why I was doing what I was doing. And for me, it was more like I wanted to get into the arts and I wanted to be an actress, and it was a completely different lifestyle. And I'm like, if I pursue that lifestyle, then my religious lifestyle would not fit with that. And so
Hmm.
I also had a similar thing where in my early 20s, I also was asking those types of questions. So it's been it from a different lens. So what did you do at that point?
Yeah. Um, so about a few days after she passed, I was like, okay, what do I like? I asked myself, what do I do? Like this fire was still alive in me, right? I'm like, something's got to change. Like I can't keep living the way I've been living and expect to live the rest of my life happy. Like that was just an irrational, thought. So I went to Barnes and Nobles and I went directly to the self-help section because I'm like, what else am I going to do? I don't know. Something just led me there. Um, and a book called Buddha fell off the shelf.
Literally
And
fell
like
off the
literally, like
shelf.
I don't know what it was, like, but me walking past it, it was like it was like it wasn't in line with all the other books. It was like leaning up against, maybe someone was just there and they left the book there. And I took it as my sign because as I'm walking past it, maybe my movement had it fall off the shelf, but it really was meant for me because that was another piece that just kind of like redirected and channeled my life in the direction that it now is, which I live a very spiritual life. And so I took the book home and I was awakened to like new ideas and like philosophies about Eastern tradition and spirituality and meditation and yoga and mindfulness and etc. Once I finished that book, went back to Barnes and Nobles and bought out almost every single book from the self-help section. Okay, like The Power of Now, like all the big ones, all the big ones. And I was like, for about 2 years, I was just ingesting spiritual knowledge. I started practicing yoga. I started practicing meditation. I'm like an all or nothing personality, though, you should
Yeah,
know. So
yeah.
like I
Well,
jumped off the deep end.
I'm already intuiting that you're a water sign from the way that you're describing yourself as a deeply emotional person and very deep spiritually. Are you water? I'm thinking either Pisces or Scorpio.
Oh, so interesting. Okay, so my sun sign is Libra,
Okay.
but my moon sign is Pisces,
Nice.
and my rising is Cancer.
Oh, wow. So you do have very strong water signs in key parts of your chart. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, hold on a second. So can I just interject here real quick? Because I'm thinking, I love what you're saying about how you went deep on the self-help, spiritual, personal development track. At any point, were you looking into the Jewish perspective on that? Was that calling on you or not so much?
So it's a funny question. I grew up with a lot of religious family in Israel. Like I have a lot of my dad has two brothers and they all kind of went in different directions. They were born and raised in Israel, and my dad moved to America and lived a more like traditional secular Jewish life. They're very proud Jews, but not necessarily observant Jews. And his brother stayed in Israel, lives in Beitar, became a big rabbi. He's like a Mekubal with 9 kids. So I have lots of religious family. So I'd grow up going visiting Israel and visiting religious communities. And at the time, if I can be totally transparent, at face value, I was turned off. I was turned off by what it did. Like I wasn't experiencing like the inside, like the mystical side of Judaism yet. I got there later in life, you
Yeah.
know, and so I was so I went to college in New York City and I was part of like the Jewish organizations for the purpose of having some sort of like social life while in college. And then I went on a trip to Neve when I was 21.
Same.
You did.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this.
Yeah.
And like, I loved it. I loved what I was learning. I loved what I was experiencing. I was like, wow, there really is depth to my own tradition. But I only went for a summer. And when I got back to New York, I felt empty. I was keeping Shabbat. I mean, I decided to keep Shabbat after a few weeks of learning in seminary, right? And dressing
Fine.
modestly and all.
Wow.
Yeah, so because I again, deep end. I jump into the deep end. I try something on because the seeker in me is like, okay, I want to feel lit up by God. I want God to fill me with light, you know? And so, but by the time I got back to New York, there wasn't a big support system. And so I was keeping Shabbat by myself for a few weeks. I was dressing modestly, and my old friends, I mean, not old, my friends then were like, Ayelet, why are you dressing like this? Like, this is not you.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the support to help me maintain the lifestyle. So when India came into the picture as an
Yeah. Tell me
option,
how did India, after a couple of years of going deep spiritually with all these books and everything, how did you end up in India?
yeah. So well, I should say I'm convinced that I've lived at least a past life in India, you know, because I've always just been really like enchanted by Indian culture and the colors and all of it.
Yes, it's so
And
beautiful.
it's so beautiful. And so the irony here is while in college in New York City, I went to a Shabbat meal one Friday night, and there was a guy sitting next to me at the meal. And at this point, I wasn't keeping Shabbat or anything. And so I had my phone on me and he wasn't observant. And so we're like passing our phone back and forth under the table at this like rabbi's Shabbat meal. Oh my gosh, Hashem, forgive me. And he was, and at this point, I had already been reading about Eastern
Yeah.
spirituality. And so I recognized when he was wearing what's called Rudraksha beads, he was wearing like this mala, it's these prayer beads
Yeah, yeah,
that they
yeah.
wear in the East for meditation. And so I was like intrigued, and we start chatting, and he basically tells me that he is a disciple of this enlightened master in India, and he introduces me to this enlightened master. Anyways, this guy and I we started dating. And you know, okay, I'll leave out some details, but
Okay.
we started dating. He got me, so through him I had met the guru, this
Okay.
enlightened master. And before I even went to India, I got on a plane when I was 22 to go to India, but a few months before I left, I had a dream in the middle of the night. And it was a dream of the guru, and he was sitting at the foot of my bed doing energy work on me. And I could see his orange robe in like vivid, bright orange colors. Like it was so vivid, the dream. So the next day I woke up and I called my then boyfriend at the time, and I was like, what do I make of this dream? And he said, hold on, you need to watch this video. He sends me a clip of the guru speaking, and he says, if you have a dream of me sitting at your bed doing energy healing on you and you see my robe in vivid orange colors, rest assured it was not just a dream. It was me coming to you, calling you to come to me because we have some work to do.
Wow. And this is, you had already met him before this dream, or you hadn't yet?
Not in person. Not in person.
Wow.
I had like seen satsangs, I had seen
But
discourses.
he didn't know you. Like it's not like you met him.
I never met him. He did not know me.
Wow.
He did not know me, but on some like quantum level, he did.
That's crazy.
So that for me again was like my sign. Again, Ayelet jumps into the deep end. I sold like thousands of dollars worth of designer purses to pay for this like big trip at age 22 to go to India.
And What was your goal with the trip? Like, what was your intention with the trip? What did you hope to accomplish?
Enlightenment.
What did that mean for you, enlightenment? Because you already were learning so much about spiritual development, all that. What did you think enlightenment would be?
So for me at the time, enlightenment meant having total control over my impulses, having control over my emotional world. Like not, for me, it was like a promise of freedom. It was freedom from the constraints of kind of like living in a physical body and all of the big feelings that come with it. I mean, I've since learned to kind of like restructure my version of enlightenment and what it means to me. But at the time, I just wanted a way to manage what was
Your
going on,
emotions.
turmoil. Yeah.
Did you ever do your astrology chart? Did you know anything about Pisces and Cancer and the deep feelings that the highly sensitive, highly deeply feeling person you are because of those elements?
I mean, I know now after years of just being on a spiritual path, this is almost 2 decades ago, you know? So like now I know. Now I know my architecture and all of the shadow that it comes with, but also all of the light and the gifts that it comes with.
Yeah.
So it really
It
is a gift.
creates a strong empathy skills, strong intuitive skills, spiritual, psychic skills. There's a lot of gifts to being so deeply feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And I own them now. You know, at the time I didn't know what to do with them. They were like taking over my life. I didn't know what to do. But now it's like now I just see myself as a channel and I
Yeah.
let the feelings come. And for me, presence is not getting to like some far off, distant land. It's presence is not a goal. Presence is right here, right now, being with all that presents itself as it is and not resisting it. Because in the resistance to what is where we create suffering. So I just allow.
So what was the plan when you did India? Was that like a open-ended plan or did you have a specific time?
It's a good question. I had a specific amount of time. So I was supposed to be there for about, so the retreat itself was 21 days, and then I extended it by a few weeks. So I was supposed to be there for like not more than a month and a half or something like that. Once I got there, I was so
Wait, with the boyfriend or without the boyfriend?
without the boyfriend. He sent me a little like gift to sent me off with some rupees so that I'd have some like currency to
Yeah.
buy, a chai if I wanted to. But
Right.
he had already done this specific retreat, so it wasn't for it wasn't, and he wanted me to experience it, on my own without him being a distraction, which was the right move.
Where were you in India? Were you in a remote village in like a country place or were you in one of the big cities?
So I landed in Bangalore, which is a big city in the south, but from Bangalore, we take a little rickshaw and go about an hour and a half outside of Bangalore into just like dirt road village. Like just you see like Indian women on the side of the streets, just like washing their clothes in buckets by hand and hanging their clothes on hanging lines. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like what you see in the Bollywood movies.
No, I mean India is what you see, and okay. I mean Bollywood has a lot. Whatever, we won't go there. But India is big,
Yeah.
and there's so many different like infrastructures and types of landscapes in India.
So what was that retreat like in the beginning? How was that experience?
So it's interesting because I mentioned that prior to going to India, I had gone to Neve for a few weeks. So one thing that I had kept at Neve, since I didn't like maintain Shabbat and modesty per se, I was like, you know what? The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say the Shema before bed every single night. So while I'm at this like very Hindu retreat with like, I should just say it, like deities
Yeah,
everywhere,
Avodazara everywhere.
Avodazara everywhere, right? It's I went to bed and I said the Shema every night. And so this retreat
Thank
for me was
God.
like, yeah, yeah. And there's a whole story of how I really believe like the Shema is what got me out of there. But the retreat itself, um, it shook me to my core because you experience things that you never thought were possible. And it's like 8 hours of meditating with like blindfolded every single day.
Why
Okay.
blindfolded?
Just so you don't open your eyes to distract yourself. Like the idea is to really go in and explore a lot of like childhood traumas. We did a lot of like rewriting our childhood stories, the narratives, restructuring meaning that we attach to experiences, right? Because the whole premise is, we heal. Well, there's different modalities for healing, but one way is when we go back into our childhood and we look at the experiences that were traumatic, uppercase T or lowercase t, doesn't matter, and we start to get super clear and honest about the meaning, the stories that we attached onto those experiences. And then we start to create a separation between the experience and the meaning, right? And in that gap between experiences, meaning is freedom,
Mm.
right? Because we realize that so much of the meaning that we attach to our experiences are based on lies or falsities, right? Like just because I came home with a piece of artwork that I was like so excited to show my mom about one night. And this is just an example. Like a hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
I was so excited to show my mom, and she was like, I don't have time to look. I'm busy. I have to keep cooking, right? And in that moment, I might have attached meaning to that experience of, oh, I'm not loved, right? Or I'm not important, or I'm not worthy, right? And so to actually go back and explore, well, what actually just happened? Okay, my mom was in the middle of cooking dinner. That's true. I wanted her to see my painting. That's true. But because she said, I don't have time for this right now, does that mean that I'm not worthy? No.
That's not true.
There's
Right.
no correlation. So there's a lot of deep, deep, deep inner work that we did to go in and actually like recognize, rewrite, relive these experiences that we had and attach new meaning to it.
So when you're doing this type of inner work on this retreat, you're discussing it. I'm assuming there's like people guiding you to do that type of work. And then when you go into meditation, what's the objective of the meditation?
So every meditation is different. I remember doing a meditation to like liberate us from our fear of death, for example, which was really intense. It's like you actually visualize yourself like laying there on your deathbed. It sounds morbid.
Super, yeah, it's super intense.
It's
Are these guided meditations?
A lot of them are, and a lot of them was just us sitting with our own thoughts so that we start to become very acquainted with the witness, right? There's the thinking and then there's the thinker, but who's the one thinking the thoughts, right? Is And so starting to get clear, like here are the thoughts and they come up like thought bubbles. And if I can witness them, then I can kind of start to learn how to detach from the thoughts or pop the thought bubbles so that I don't start to become entangled with the thoughts and start to use them as my identity or
Right.
pretend
So
that like my thoughts
your
are me.
thoughts are not you. Like they're outside of you.
Exactly.
So what after that 3 week retreat, were you hooked?
I mean, I saw everyone around me and it was as though they like drank the sweet nectar of devotion, right? And I wanted that. Like they were w- worshiping the guru, like really. And
But
I'm looking,
what's unique to the guru? I can understand the experience and the teachings and how it's transforming you, but why is the guru thing so important?
so one thing from my experience with having a guru for as long as I did, there is something that feels more tangible when it comes to accessing the divine through a medium,
Uh-huh.
right? Like through an interface.
Yes.
So like the guru, even though some people really viewed him as God, right? Like
Wow.
what I saw was this interface that allowed for like the almost like personification of something divine that I can now give my problems over to. I can go to him and say, please heal me of this. Please heal my parents of this, my friends of this, my family of that. And he just says, tatastu, and it's done. Right. So it's like, it almost feels like a shortcut. I'm not saying it's the right way, but it felt like a shortcut and a direct access point for me to commune with God.
That makes sense. Would you say that the Jewish concept of a tzaddik is similar to the Buddhist concept of a guru?
I think there's a fine line. I think there's a fine line. I think if we're looking at Sadiqim through the lens that we're meant to, then they are meant to be seen as like interfaces, right? But we're not meant to necessarily give over our prayers directly or our requests directly to the tzaddik. But I think what some people like when they go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah to visit Rabbi Nachman, right? I do think some people are idolizing the tzaddik as an idol. And for me, because of the years that I spent having a guru like that, like I have like a
Sensitivity or
sense
repulsion. Yeah.
yeah, totally, totally, totally. But I see tzaddikim as sages who are expanded vessels who were able to contain a lot of light. And their job is to now kind of be the interface between the divine and us. So they kind of create this like ladder or the stepping stone where
Mm.
they can then take our prayers and pull them up to a higher level to reach, Atzilut, to reach the highest of highs,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've always approached the concept of a tzaddik from the perspective of that we all need role models, right? It's so important to have role models, especially spiritual role models. Like, what does it look like to attain a higher consciousness? What does it look like to be very close to Hashem? So for me, that's always been the tzaddik. But there's also the concept in Hasidus of hikashrut. Like
Mhm.
some of my teachers are very into like, calling on the tzaddikim when you're in meditation. He'd kasher to Moshe Rabbeinu, he'd kasher to Rabbi Nachman, he'd kasher to Rabbi Shimon. Like you're calling on their energy, which I've always felt a little bit uncomfortable with.
Mhm.
Um, because we're not supposed to really tap into spirits that have passed, right? I'm also very uncomfortable with the whole concept of visiting the kever of a tzaddik, which also is very much part of our tradition. And I grew up like as a kid when we would go to Israel every summer, thank God we had that bracha in our lives, is that we'd always go to the tzaddikim in Tveria and Sfad and Netivot because you can't be Moroccan and not go see the Baba Sali. Like, and it would be
Totally.
so funny. That would be like my cousin's bar mitzvah, and part of the celebration is you go to the kever, and I'm like, why are we at a kever? Why are we visiting the tomb of someone that passed when we're celebrating something? So there's something there that I feel like it's really holy, but at the same time, like deeply counterintuitive,
I
you
can relate.
know?
I can totally relate to that. I personally am not pulled to going to Kvarim. Like it doesn't call me. Like I like going straight to the source, and I feel
Same.
like going straight to the source is accessible anywhere in the world.
Yeah, but I
Mhm.
do think that there is a power in holy sites from the perspective of the presence of the people
Yeah.
over generations, hundreds of years of people coming to this place, pouring out their heart, pouring out their prayers, really deeply wanting to connect to Hashem. And this is the place that they chose to have that experience. So I feel like the Rishimu, the impression of those types of repetitive experiences in those specific places,
Yes.
that in of itself is super holy and powerful, which I think is completely separate from the concept of visiting the tomb. You know what I'm saying? Like
Totally.
all
Totally.
of that.
Yeah, like energy leaves an imprint and all of our
Yes.
prayers leave imprints and that collective consciousness, like we're pouring that much energy as a collective onto these sacred sites, then that site is going to hold the frequency of that collective energy. So like for me, I resonate with that completely.
Yeah, and also like it reminds me of something one of my teachers told me is um like have a place in your house that's your davening spot and or your meditation spot and just sit there every day. Like
Yeah,
because the accumulation of constantly going to that space in your home brings you into that mindset right away because you're like this is the place where but also the spiritual imprint on something when you repetitively experience kedusha in a place.
100%.
So do you have that? Do you have a thing in your house that's like your spot for sitting or
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah?
I have a whole, it's like my
Do you
whole
have like a little, do you have like candles? Like, do you have like a whole thing?
It's like a big table. It's a
Yeah, oh,
big
I want to see
table
it. I
with
want
a
to see it.
meditation chair with like crystals
And
and
cards, like yeah,
cards and little like plants
yes,
and crystal, yeah, the whole incense. I
yes.
make it very like
I love that.
I make my time to go inward very sacred. Because it's like it creates this little like portal in time, like a pocket in time that
Yes,
can
but
exist.
also because you're a Libra, which makes so much sense now. I mean, we just met each other a few weeks ago, but you're super fashionable. Like that, I can say about you. So I do think that, especially as a Libra, beauty and balance and harmony, and also your home is beautiful. Thank God. Like I love the vibe of your place. It's so calming and green and neutral. Like there's just some really beautiful balance in your home. And I think that physicality, like how we decorate our home and how we organize our space, really does contribute to inner balance and inner harmony, you know, and that beauty is like I think you were in one of your classes you were talking about this. You were saying how you were talking about frequency and you were saying how colors and sounds have certain vibrations, right? And I find that like when I wear certain colors or when I see certain colors in my home, it raises my frequency, lifts me up. Like you will never see me with anything black in my house. Like I hate the color black.
Uh-huh.
I will
Mhm.
not have it on anything, right?
Mhm.
And so I really feel like I really love this is one of the things I love about Judaism is that the physical stuff is just as important as the spiritual stuff, and there's a place for it, and there's a way to integrate physicality with spirituality in a way that really activates within you a way of connecting that's not like, oh, I need to go to a village in India to meditate for 10 hours in order to connect to God, but rather I can access Hashem by cutting up challah and having guests over for Shabbos. That's like my way of connecting to Hashem also, right?
Totally. I mean, the way I see it is like as within, so without, as above, so below, right? It's like everything is a mirror reflection of everything, right? So if I walk into a space and I'm like, I consider myself to be kind of like a tuning fork. Like I can walk into a space and there'll be people there, even just like the way that it's set up, where instantly my nervous system will like attune to the frequency of the space or it'll attune to the person that I'm speaking to, because we really are mirrors of one another. And the eye is just a reflector that takes it all in and feeds information back into our system, telling our system whether we need to like fight, flight, freeze, or whether we can like relax and be at ease. Mhm.
Yeah. But do you find because knowing that you have the Pisces Cancer, that's like really important information about you because I feel like I'm a Pisces with Scorpio moon. So I have that thing also. But do you find that this tuning fork aspect of who you are helps you filter out people in your life? Like,
Totally.
are you able, like, I'm like super sensitive to who I surround myself with. Like, if I like I need to be around people that when I'm with them, I either feel calm or I feel energized. But people who bring me down or I feel drained, I can't I filter that out. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm very, very particular about who I'll let into my inner circle. Like for me at this point in my life, after like doing all this work, I've just come to prioritize safety above all else, right? And like, does this person feel safe to my system? Right? And are they a vibrational match? It doesn't mean that they're necessarily an unsafe person,
Yeah.
right? But meaning, are they a vibrational match that creates safety for what my system needs in order for my kind of walls to come down? And because I can be an open book, like I'm very transparent and I'm a big talker, and
Same.
yeah, right. Like I feel like we're human, and I'm not here to pretend that I'm some like guru or Eva, like, right? Like we're human
Yeah.
beings. We're all in it together. And I have a lot of tools in my toolkit. And, and I can get places quickly because I've trained myself to. But I'm experiencing the same things that anybody else is experiencing because I'm in a human body, like I'm in a meat suit, and I have
Yeah,
human emotions. And so knowing that I've been able to now attract people who, like I like having people in my inner circle who we can like deep dive and have
yeah,
like real like soulful conversation versus
yeah.
like, how's the weather outside? Like that just
Right.
doesn't do it for me. That just does not.
You're reminding me of our conversation in your sukkah. Me, you, and Regina, and how we went deep so fast. I was like, whoa. I was like, this type of, circle is like my thing. And I think it's so special to have that. I think it's we all look for people that we can vibe with on that level.
Yeah.
I'm curious as an empath, especially because you work with other people that are trying to manifest. And so much of what you teach is about being in a place of abundance and really vibrating joy and all, and in order to access like on the quantum level, like your higher self and everything, which I really love your approach. It's beautiful.
Thank
But what
you.
do you do when you work with people, especially as a mentor or coach, that are like Debbie Downers or like really stuck in negative patterns? Do you feel like you're able to create a barrier and help them, or do you feel like sometimes that sort of negativity drains you or brings you down?
So it's interesting because like you refer to me as an empath, and while I'm like a deeply feeling person, and while I am like a tuning fork and I can like assess what's right for me and what's not, I don't necessarily categorize myself as like a full-blown empath.
Really?
I'm actually like really, really good. Thank God. I don't know if I've like trained myself to do this or if it's just a gift. Like I can work with people who have gone through some like big life challenges. Like you think of it, like you name it, I've probably worked with this type of client. Like I've seen like a wide spectrum of individuals, thank God. And I've just been able to kind of like I look at each person and I see them as their possibility. I don't see them as their negative self-talk. I don't see them as their problem. I don't even see them as a problem. I don't see them as the challenge they're going through. I don't see them as the drama that they're bringing to the table. Try to sort through all that noise and just get straight into like their neshama level, like their God particle. And I see the potential and the possibility that exists within the person, which I think is what makes me good at what I do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, because everything you're teaching is about allowing them to see that within themselves. So
Yeah.
you're seeing that within them, and then you want to reflect that back to them so they can see that within themselves.
Yeah. And I bring a really like non-judgmental, like one thing that I get reflected back to me by so many of my clients is like how safe they feel in my presence. Like I become like right now I'm in like podcast mode, right? But
Yeah,
like when someone's in my presence, I become like mama bear. There's this like nurturing, loving, just like really attentive. Like, some of my best friends, they always say they're like, Ayelet, when we're with you, it feels like nobody else in the world exists besides me. And
wow.
uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So thank God. I think a lot of me needing to sort through like my own turmoil has gotten me to that place where I can bring like non-judgment and real like we're all in this together. We're all human beings. We all have our struggles, some bigger, some smaller, but what makes me any different from you?
100%. And I want to hear, so let's hear more about that, how you went through it. So we're going back to India now, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
I
you
feel like
did
we're
this.
gonna need a part one, part two,
I was
part
I was
three.
thinking the same because I don't want to rush it. I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes today. So you're back in India now, okay? And you just did the 3 week retreat. There's this guru. And are you buying into the whole guru thing, or you're like trying to figure out where you stand?
I was trying to figure out where I stand because, every day we would go up to the guru and so many people would actually like bow at his feet, like prostrate themselves at his feet. And then he would give them what's called a darshan. So he put his finger on our third eye and it like creates some sort of like an awakening of. And I'm like, I'm kind of just like, kind of like herd mentality. I'm like, if everyone else is doing it, I guess I need to do that in order to experience enlightenment because that's what I came here for. And at this point, I
Yeah.
wasn't religious. So I didn't really understand from a religious perspective the implications of what
Yeah.
I was doing at
Yeah.
all. So I did it. And even as I was doing it, I was like, it's like my Jewish neshama, my Jewish soul was like, yeah, what are you doing? Like this,
Yeah.
you prostrating yourself at anybody's feet? Like what?
Yeah.
Your parents were lucky if they got a yes out of you. Now you're bowing in front of like an
But did
um,
you feel a shift in you? Was there a shift?
there was definitely a shift in me. I don't know if I could like give credit to the guru for creating
Right.
that shift and like to
Right.
his like superpowers.
Yeah.
I do he is a much larger than life
Personality.
individual. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like there's something about being in his like vicinity in his breathing space that instantly kind of like awaken something within you, like something just like the mirror neurons, right? Like I'm looking at someone who's larger than life, and what it's doing is it's kind of awakening within me this feeling of like, oh, I can be larger than life, right? Or something in
Right, like I said, like a spiritual role model. And I do think that a lot of these gurus are probably spiritually gifted. You
they
know,
are totally.
they are accessing higher consciousness, the quantum field, all that stuff that is impacting who they are. It's just the way it manifests in the dynamics between their followers that's not so kosher.
Yeah.
But there's something there that's obviously being accessed.
So yeah, so what's interesting is I had asked Swamiji, the guru, I asked him at one point during those first 21 days that I met him, I went up to the microphone and I asked him a question. I said, Swamiji, I'm feeling conflicted because I'm going to bed at night reciting a Jewish prayer called the Shema, but I'm waking up every morning reciting puja, which is Sanskrit guru worship, right? I said, what do I do about that? Because something in me is not feeling like they align. And he sort of looked at me, he said, Ayelet, he said, Ayelet, he said, keep doing both. Whichever one is not meant for you will eventually fall away.
Mm. He didn't encourage you to follow your ancestral path.
No, because that wasn't, kind
But
of
there
like,
are stories of Jewish people, many Jewish people, who go to India and do have these moments where they interact with the gurus, and the gurus are like, "This is not your path," and then send them to Israel. You know, they do. There are those types of experiences too.
yeah, not this guru. He
Yeah.
he also like I was at the time leading a lot of like retreats all around the world. And so I became very prime, I very like a prime character in his organization because I would travel the world, bringing people from all over the world to these exotic locations, and I would give over his teachings. So I don't know that he was so quick to like get rid of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't know what was going on through his head, but
So you went from attending the retreat to working for the guru?
I wouldn't say working for him. I was like working for myself. I was self-employed. I was running these retreats. I was a life coach. I was seeing clients, and I was kind of just pulling from what he was teaching me, but I was referencing him while
While
I
you
was
were
doing
in
this
India, or when you came back home and did that?
both. So here's
Okay.
the thing. I ended up after that first 21 days,
Yeah.
something in me said it's not time to go home yet. And so I ended up flying back to America, packing up my stuff, going back to India, and it became a 6 year journey.
Wow.
Like a 6 year journey of being devoted to this particular teacher. Of I was in and out of India, but for the large portion of those 6 years, I was living at the ashram, studying directly under him, and then kind of leaving in order to lead a retreat somewhere or another.
Oh, so you were doing your own thing, inspired by your spiritual awakening. You developed a business of coaching based on the teachings of the guru.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So 6 years late, I mean, 6 years later, I had accumulated a lot of like Eastern wisdom and had a lot of really awakening experiences, which I do not regret. I don't regret. I mean, so much of that carved me into the person I am today. Like the amount of self-awareness, the amount of clarity I have on all of the stories I was telling myself about myself that I was able to kind of sort through and rewrite and come out anew, and also just like what I had access to. Like that's a once in a lifetime opportunity, like what I had access to during those 6 years and what I saw really helped me enter into the world of the miraculous because through him I started learning manifestation. Like my journey in manifestation started from a more Eastern Hindu lens before I got
Well,
to Israel.
what was his approach regarding manifestation that you plugged into?
So he basically says that we are, metaphorically speaking, always sitting under a wish fulfilling tree, right? And this wish fulfilling tree wants to provide for us all of our deepest heart's desires, right? But that wish fulfilling tree is going to respond according to what we're thinking, how we're speaking, right? What are the desires that we have? Because we don't manifest according to what we want, we manifest according to our unconscious desires. So, for example, let's say a woman wants to get married. She wants to meet her soulmate. She's been looking for him for years, or who cares how long. She wants to meet her soulmate and she keeps attracting the wrong guy after the wrong guy. Or let's say she's not attracting anyone at all, right? It's kind of like a dry spurt. The conscious desire, what she's aware of is I want to get married. I want to meet my husband. That's what I want. I'll ask them, "Do you know that you want that? Are you sure that you want that?" "Yes, that's what I want." But then as we start to dig a little deeper into what's going on in the unconscious realm, right? There's also an attachment to fear of intimacy, fear of commitment. Oh my gosh, does that mean I have to share a home with another person? What if they want to decorate it their way and not my way? That's terrifying. What if I have to lose my identity or give up my freedom once I'm married, right? So there's what we're aware of, but then there's also like what we're unconsciously committing to, and that creates conflicting desires. Right. So we are always sitting under this wish fulfilling tree, and that tree is going to give us according to our desires. But if we don't get super crystal clear, what is also going on in my blind spot? What are my blockages? What am I committed to unconsciously that is contributing to what is manifesting in my 3D reality? Then we're just going to keep manifesting more of what we've been manifesting, and we're not really going to get anywhere.
So that's so cool. I have so many questions around that. So number one is what is his approach as far as how you access the unconscious? Is that through meditation?
So there's a specific type of visualization that he would have us do. It's a 21-minute visualization process where, it's a three-step process actually. First, we'd have to write down, and I take my clients through this process as well because there's a
Yeah,
lot of value
I think
here.
I saw some of it on on your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and none of this contradicts Judaism, right? Like
Yeah, it's probably universal.
it's very universal. And once I left India, that's a whole story how I left India and got to Israel, but ended up living in Israel for almost 8 years after
Yeah.
India. And my whole life's work for those 8 years in Israel was to kind of like decipher what it was that I experienced in India. What can I still bring with me? What's
Yeah.
kosher, so to
Yes.
speak? What's coming
Yes.
down from the side of Kedusha and not like the Sitra Achra, right? And so this process is a three-step process where first you write down in present tense, what is your desire? I am manifesting, not I want to manifest, not I wish I could
In
manifest,
the
because
present.
in the present, because
Yeah.
if I want to manifest something, want implies lack,
Hmm.
right? I don't yet have it, I want it, which implies something's missing. And when we speak like that or we think like that, we're in a space of scarcity, and lack attracts more lack. So we
Hmm.
really want to become aware of what are the types of thoughts I'm thinking when I'm manifesting and what am I writing down. Right. So I am manifesting my husband by the end of May of this year or something better, right? So we're writing down in detail what it is that we're manifesting in present tense. The second step is to write down all of the conflicting thoughts and desires that correspond to that one desire that I know I want, right? So like I want this, but the conflict here is I'm scared of giving up my freedom. I'm scared of commitment. I'm scared of a person seeing me behind closed doors and like what actually like all like the
Yeah.
vulnerable parts of me, right? All that.
Yeah.
Um, And then once you do that, you close your eyes, set an alarm for 21 minutes, put on some nice music, or I have an actual guided visualization, which I'm happy to share for free. I have it recorded. If your listeners want access to it, I can give you a link to it.
Thank you.
And I use this same 21-minute visualization that I share with my clients. I used it to manifest my own husband, which is a whole story. But then you close your eyes and you want to actually visualize yourself, right? This is how we do like time bending, and we accelerate a process also, right? We're pulling something from the quantum realm, the realm of infinite possibility, and we're actually drawing it into here and now physical 3D reality by closing our eyes, imagining a version of you that is living your manifested dream life as though it's already happening right here, right now. And it's not enough to just think it. You have to feel it, because your frequency, your energy, your vibration is what creates a stronger magnet to pull in what it is you desire into 3D form.
Yeah, Dispenza is all about that. So I have a couple of questions about this three-step process. Step number two, I love the I am statement. I think I saw you do that with the group. Everyone says I am or I, you don't say I want, you say I am. The second step, I think, is where there might be issues because the conflicting ideas, not everyone is so self-aware to even know what those subconscious blocks, fears, anything like they people might not even know. They'll just be like, no, I want to get married. Like they're not even aware that they have that. So do you work with people to help them learn how to access those self-limiting beliefs that might be subconscious that they're not having, access to?
Totally. I mean, this is the crux of the work, right? Like whether
Okay.
I'm seeing a client one-on-one in my one, like my personal container, or whether they're coming to like manifest lifelong love, like the group coaching container, or, whether they're coming to a workshop, whatever it is, like the main thing we want to get clear of, because like awareness is king or queen, right? Like you have
Yeah.
awareness, then you can start to realign yourself back to what you're clear about, like
Yes.
what you're clear on. But it starts with awareness. So what we do in a lot of my work is we pull from our blind spots,
Right.
right?
The blind spots.
Right,
Exactly.
that's kind of like, I'd say that's one of the things I've been able to cultivate over these last 2 decades of doing this work, is like bringing clarity to people, helping them really get clear, what are my blind spots. Like at
Yes.
the end of these sessions, people are like, oh, how did I not know that about myself? Oh my gosh.
100%.
Like they just,
100%.
it's like they know themselves with so much more clarity and transparent. Now you've got what to work with. Once you're
Yes.
clear on what your doubts are, we get to take those doubts, and now we can do the spiritual alchemy of
Right.
shifting those doubts into
Yeah, because
infinite
I feel
possibility.
like once you have, I feel like step one and step three, anyone can do that. But step two, I think that's really people's biggest problem. Okay, my second question is, um, both within the context of your India experience and also your manifestation work, more the India experience. Where does God fit in within the Buddhist approach? Because if the guru has a role, like it seems like they leave God out.
Yeah, so it's so good that you say that, because I think that's kind of what got me at the end of these 6 years to feel like I've reached a glass ceiling. And I'm like, what's behind curtain number three? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like what's beyond the
Yeah.
guru? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people, like they give their power over to the guru. At least that's how I experienced it. Um, and to me, that felt very limiting. And I was asking myself that same question. I'm like, where is the infinite in all of this? Because
Yeah.
people are channeling a lot of their energy into the guru, and they're praying to the guru, and they're praising the guru, and they're giving their like maaser to the guru,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, okay, hold on. Something in my little Jewish neshamale is
Yeah.
like, red alert, not okay. And so at the end of the 6 years, I had like a real like coming to God experience that woke me up and spiraled me in a new direction, got me to Israel. And it was when I got to Israel that I think that is the key thing that differentiates Jewish manifestation from Eastern manifestation, at least through the lens that I learned Eastern manifestation. I'll say that. And that is like, from a Jewish perspective, we are not the ones manifesting. And I want to make that crystal clear. We are not the ones manifesting, right? Like, "Potech et yadecha u'maspira lekol chai ratzon." Like he gives you according to your will. So
Yeah.
it's up to us to get clear. What is it that is our will? What is it that we want? Once we're clear on that, I mean, I have a whole methodology. We can get into it, but like it's a step-by-step process to get to that place of clarity. And what is my role as a human being? Because one piece of that co-creative dance, we've acknowledged God is the one manifesting. So now, how do I get out of God's way so that God can actually have a space, like create a vacated space for God to come in and fill his light and shower my life with abundance? But I got to learn how to surrender and get out of God's way. Right.
Yeah. And also, within the more normative, Orthodox, observant framework, that, God is not a vending machine, right? So even if you know what you want, right? Like, that whole documentary, What the Bleep Do We Know, about is a big
Mhm.
one about manifestation. I love that movie also. But the system, the Jewish system of manifestation, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, is very much connected to Hashem's will for us. Meaning we could have our will of what we want, but Hashem also has a will for us.
Yes.
And that in order to align our will with Hashem's will, that's where the whole system of Torah comes into place, right? That living a Torah lifestyle is how you align your will with God's will, right? And so how do you reconcile that? Like, let's say a person wants to manifest a certain bracha, a certain blessing in their life, whether it's marriage or children or parnasa, success, all those things. They could be super clear about it. They could clear out all the blocks, all the subconscious, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if not if, Hashem is the source of all the brachot, and if that person is not living a Torah lifestyle or a lifestyle that's aligned with Hashem's will, how do you reconcile that?
So there's a differentiation here that I want to make, right? Living a Torah-centered lifestyle, living a halachic lifestyle, right? That's a blueprint. That is the vessel that allows you to contain the light without shattering your kli, without shattering your vessel, right? But a person can manifest whether they are religious or not. And I
Yeah,
think that's important to clarify here, right?
I agree.
It's not that keeping Torah and mitzvot are what gets us to manifest what we want, but keeping Torah and mitzvot are what create the vessel to allow us to hold the amount of abundance that we're calling in,
Right.
right?
Mm. Yes and no.
Okay. Okay. Let's play. Let's
Let's
play.
play with this a little bit. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. What's the purpose of creation, right? What's the purpose of creation is Hashem is revealing himself. Hashem is expressing himself or herself or itself. We don't Hashem has no gender, right? Let's not we could have a whole conversation the
I
gender
know. That'll
but
be part four.
fully yeah. But in essence, this world is an expression of godliness, right? And so because human beings have the highest consciousness in creation, we have the highest potential for revealing godliness in the world, right? And that's for all humanity, Jews, non Jews, everyone is a channel for expressing godliness in the world.
Mhm.
But as a Jew, we have a very specific role that we're supposed to manifest in the world. And that is directly connected to the Torah system of halacha. And so, what I'm saying is that what the person wants for themselves to manifest needs to be, if they're a Jew, if they're a Jew, needs to be interconnected with what Hashem wants for him as a Jew in this world. Like everyone has different shvilim, different paths to their highest self, to expressing their highest self. And if you came into this lifetime in this incarnation as a Jew, there's a very specific potential that you're meant to express through the Jewish path. And I think that that's what's interesting with your story, and that's why I went deep on understanding your India experience, is
Mhm.
because You went that way, but that was not your shvil. Your shvil was the Jewish shvil, the Jewish path. And then through going that way, you were able to access what was unique to your neshama, unique to your purpose, unique to your expression of godliness in the world via that, indirect route, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, your path is a Jewish path.
Yeah. So I think we're saying the same thing in two different ways. I don't think
Yeah.
we're contradicting one another.
Yeah.
I think that as a Jew, we are given this blueprint that allows us to get from like point A to Z in the way that is most in alignment with our Jewish soul. Yes. Yes. That being said, I do think that there is something added to this that is unique to each individual Jew or each individual person. But if we're, talking about Jews here, right? Like
Yeah.
there's something unique. No two Jews are going to be alike,
Okay.
right? We're
Yeah.
each unique. And so, how do we know that we are manifesting according to Hashem's will for us? Because I don't think it's just Torah and mitzvot that Hashem wants us keeping. I'm not saying he doesn't want us keeping that, but I don't think it's exclusive to just that. I think as an
It's
individual,
not.
as a
Yeah.
unique individual, I have a unique soul purpose that I'm meant to play out in this lifetime that is really unique to Ayelet's neshama. You have one that is unique to Rina's neshama, right? And like when we feel lit up by life, when we feel lit up by an opportunity, when we feel called to something or pulled to something, and we're able to sort through the noise and listen to that still small voice of intuition and follow that nudge to go in that direction, then we're also following Hashem's will for us as a unique individual. And when we do that, we see manifestations happen left and right because we're in alignment with what our soul's purpose was meant to do on this planet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I love that. I had to ask the Jewy question because there's going to be a lot of people asking that. So what about people that a lot of people can be very successful, right? Very high performers, very high achievements in life, whether professionally, financially, personally, people who really succeed in life in big ways. And even when they do, it's not enough. It's not enough. They still feel like they haven't discovered their purpose in life. So, how do you help people like that with manifestation?
With people who have accomplished a lot but still feel like it's not enough.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's being a Jew means living in the paradox. It means living in paradox and being okay with paradox, right? So it's like, am I totally happy with my life? Am I so grateful for what I have? Do I feel abundant inside and out? That is like a very strong yes. And do I want more? Yeah, I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as so long as we're in this meat suit and our soul has a mission to play out in this world, and it doesn't mean I want more like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Like, I could care less about that. Like, I want to be more of service to the world.
Yeah.
I want my containers to influence more people so that not for my sake so much, but as so for the sake of like what the amount of joy that I get when someone comes to me and they're like, Ayelet, my life is transformed because you're in it, right? Like, yes,
Yeah.
there's a sense of like my ego gets a little bit like, oh, that feels nice,
Yeah.
but like that's not what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it because I feel like I'm doing God's work and it's aligned with my mission. So there is this paradox of like my soul's not done with its mission here. If it was, I'd be transitioned already into the next world, right? Like my soul has more to play out. So I think it's a very natural tendency to be like, I have a lot and I'm not done. Now, the kicker here though is to get a person to access gratitude for what they already have. Because
Mm.
from a manifestation perspective, what you appreciate appreciates. So if my 5-year-old son, if he's like, Ima, like I love you so much and you do so much for me and thank you so much for cooking this amazing dinner and for putting this roof over our home and sending us to good schools and like he shows his appreciation. All I want to do as his mama is give him more because he's so in that frequency of gratitude. But if my son's like, yeah, I got a bike for my birthday, and yeah, I know I got a new toy and I got a new bed and new and you know what, but I still want this, this, and this, and you owe me that, I'm gonna be like, bro, go get a job, okay? Right? And it's like the parent-child model is very synonymous with the God-human model.
Yes,
It's like,
big
you know,
time.
yeah. So,
I talk about that a lot in my classes that when I became a parent, like it really shifted my relationship with Hashem because I feel like there's so many moments that I'm like, this is exactly what happens to us. Like we say no to our kids a million times a day and we keep saying no and they see it as like us, rejecting what they want, but really it's for their own good and how many times. So that's another thing that I was going to ask you about manifesting is like people may want something, but if it doesn't manifest, if it doesn't come, how can you help them see that the no is actually what they need, even
oh my
though they
gosh.
don't?
So that's like, I mean, I have a whole, we didn't even get into like the methodology. That's
Yeah.
like, well, there's a whole methodology here, but it's like, understanding that rejection is protection in manifestation is fundamental, right? If I'm asking God for something and I'm just not getting it in the timeline that I would like it to arrive in, first off, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. It just might mean not right now. But the fact that I'm doing all of my manifestation work behind the scenes, I'm doing the 80% of inner work and the 20% Hishtadlut, right? Like the fact that all these pieces are in place, it just might mean that I am not quite at the place to receive what it is I'm asking for in the way that it will come to me that will serve me. Because a person can manifest a soulmate based on where they are, what they're a
Yes.
vibrational match for. But
Yes.
if Hashem wants something more magnificent for you, then Hashem might be saying, I'm just preparing you a little bit more to receive the top of the top cherry on top partner.
Yeah.
And maybe Hashem's like preparing the partner while you might be ready, but your partner is being prepared. We don't know
Yeah.
what's happening behind the scenes,
Yeah,
right?
so it's a collaboration. Life is a collaboration between your will and Hashem's will for you, right? And there's room for negotiation there.
Right.
And I think that's what I was trying to allude to earlier with the whole like living Torah lifestyle, like Hashem's will is like we have sort of like a predestiny, like we have a very specific reason why we're here, right? I'm curious, I know we have so many things that we could talk about, but I'm curious about that shift for you when you finally left India after being there for 6 years and being so rooted. Like, how did that come about?
Hmm. So it was like a, towards the end of my 6 year time period in India, I had attended Kumbh Mela, which is the largest festival of consciousness on the planet.
Really?
It's
What's it called?
Kumbh Mela.
Oh, I want
K
to go there. What is?
K U KUMBH space L Kumbh space MELA. I believe that's how it's. But if you put that in Google, something along those lines will show up.
Wow, I
Kumbh
love the
Mela.
name. It sounds so nice.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was a circus. I mean, like it was nice was one way to put it, but it was also like rugged and intense and like deep inner work. And like we were doing like these 21-day food fasts, no food for 21 days to train our mind to control our bodily impulses, right? Like there's a whole thing of like getting hangry. When I don't eat, I'm hangry, right? So it's like
Same.
to become aware of those impulses and to be able to like work with them in a way
Yeah.
where they serve you versus you're their servant,
Yeah, that's
is
power. That's
that's
power.
power.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we were doing all sorts of really intense, rigorous exercises like that.
I love
Um,
it.
and so it was at one point during Kumbh Mela that, so when I say largest festival of consciousness on the planet, right? Like how many people go to like Uman Rosh Hashanah?
Coachella, yeah.
Like,
I'm thinking Coachella.
or Coachella, or like Coach, okay, fine, Coachella, or like Uman Rosh Hashanah, right? There's a lot of people, but this is so Kumbh Mela is in the desert in India, and it's 50 million, 50 million Hindus
Oh my
come
God,
from all over India. So here I am,
that's
right?
a lot. I can't
Like
even fathom that number.
It was a lot. It was a lot. So like I'm here in the middle of Kumbh Mela, 50 million Hindus, like little Jewish girl, right? Yeah. And it was just all the gurus from all over India come and set up camps there, basically, for like 3 months at a time. So Kumbh Mela is a 3 month experience. Um, and so my camp with my guru was 10,000 people just in that camp. So imagine the size of this meditation hall, like huge meditation hall, 10,000 of us, and doing this like rigorous mental gymnastics. So at one point, when the guru said everyone has a 30-minute break, every single one of us just kind of like curled up in a ball in the meditation tent and took a nap. Okay, so I'm there laying with my head on my backpack as a pillow. And like all of the sudden, in the middle of like my third dream, I hear this loud banging noise. And so I open my eyes and I see that the walls of this massive structure, like this tent, start ripping open and strong winds and water and debris start like gushing into this huge tent. And at that point, I realized I was not dreaming anymore. I was very much in the middle of a very real, like cyclone, tornado, some sort of natural disaster.
Wow.
And 10,000 people stood up, screaming, running towards two tiny little exit doors. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm looking up at this structure. It's starting to rattle and shake and come apart. And I'm like, if I get in line and follow this stampede of people, this thing's going to collapse and I'm done for. So my like very impulsive brain came up with a plan B and I slid under the foundation of the tent because at that point the floor was already becoming like like mud, like mush. So it was soft enough for me to slide under. I'm outside of the tent and it's like the first scene out of The Wizard of Oz, right? There's like metal poles flying everywhere,
Oh my goodness.
debris everywhere, people screaming, yelling, trying to find shelter. But what shelter? We're in the middle of the desert. There was no
Yeah.
shelter.
Yeah.
So again, impulsive brain, I'm like scanning. I was like thinking quick, and thank God my like nervous system didn't go into freeze. Like I
Yeah.
just went straight into flight mode.
Yeah.
And I saw ahead of me in the distance a large transportation truck that came earlier that day to deliver fruit to the camp.
Yeah.
I slid under the truck. I'm literally begging God for my life. I'm like crying. I'm like, I can't die here. Please, I don't want to die. And I'm terrified. And suddenly I hear a voice coming from my right side, and I look over, and this elderly woman who I guess slid under the truck after me looks at me like dead in the eyes, piercing blue eyes. She goes, "Don't worry, darling. At least if we die here, we die with our guru."
Oh my gosh.
And I looked at her, and at that point, it was like my Jewish neshama was like, "See, I told you, you're not in the right place." And I went back into my process and I was like, I literally said these words out loud because I'm like looking at this lady thinking like maybe you came here to die with your guru.
Yeah.
I did not come here to die with my guru.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I
That
closed.
was such a New York moment right there. That was your New Yorker
She
coming
comes
out.
out. She comes out sometimes. She comes out. She like don't tempt her with a good time. Okay.
I love it.
And so I closed my eyes and I literally said these words out loud. I said, "Dear God, if you're listening, I need a miracle. I don't know where I'm meant to go, what I'm meant to do, but I am open and surrendered to your divine guidance." And then I don't know what caused me to do what I did next, but I covered my eyes and I said, "Shema
Mm.
Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad." And
Oh, I
Rina,
just got the chills.
yeah, yeah. I kid you not, within 30 seconds, the entire tornado, it just got quiet. It was quiet. It was silent. And, I can't say that I'm so powerful that I stopped a tornado, but what
Yes,
I
you
can
are.
say,
You totally are.
what I can say is like in that moment, I was just like, holy moly, manifestation is real. God just stopped a tornado for me. And I don't know what I meant to do or where I meant to go, but I am surrendered to your divine guidance.
Beautiful.
And so within a couple of months, like I had to kind of like close up shop and like settle things within myself and kind of come to that place of closure, like I'm not meant to be here. And the guru had invited 21 of us on a 3-month bus tour of southern India. So a week before the bus was going to depart from the ashram, I went up north to visit some friends in Bombay, and I'm sitting in meditation by the pool, and I'm like doing all my manifestation stuff, getting myself hyped up for this like personal bus tour with the guru. And as I'm in meditation, a voice in my head, as crystal clear as this conversation right here, right now, comes through, and it says, Ayelet, leave this country now and go to Israel and never look back. Within 30 minutes, I had a flight booked. I got on a plane the next morning. I had no idea what I was doing in Israel, why I was meant to be going to Israel, why I was like being pulled to Israel. But one thing led to another. And I was so divinely guided to the point where, like, I was started keeping Shabbat a month after arriving in Israel. Like, that's how clear I was. And I had done 6 years worth of deep spiritual work leading up to arriving in Israel. That, like, once I started learning, like, the deep mystical truths behind my own sacred tradition,
Yes.
I was like, oh, my soul finally is home, you know? And so I'm
And it sounds definitely like that was a miracle
huge.
and a total hashgacha experience of Hashem watching over you and protecting you. Wow, girl, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, and that was only like the tip of the iceberg, Rena. Like there, we didn't go into like my journeys in South America and the Amazon jungle. There's a whole how I met my husband. That's a whole manifestation, right? Like that's
Wait,
a whole.
how much time do we have? 5 minutes?
We've got like 3 minutes before we got like 3 minutes, but we could
Okay.
really, we really should do a part two if
Let's
you're
do a
interested.
part two because I don't want to rush it, and I feel like there's so many things to unpack along the way.
Yeah,
So let's do that.
yeah,
But thank you so much. Like this has really been such a wonderful conversation and just sharing your personal experiences. I think you're such a powerful person. Like I love the moments when you dive deep, like where you just go, you just
it's
go.
like my friends laugh at me. They're like, "Where is the shallow end in Ayelet's pool?" I'm like, "What shallow end? It doesn't exist. I don't even know how to swim, and I have it, and I'm only going the deep end."
You really live life to the fullest, and
Yeah.
it's so perfect that that's what you help people do is like really get to that space. And it's coming from such an authentic place because you've gone through it. Like you know what it's like to be on the other end, you know? So let's continue the conversation for sure.
Totally.
I would love
Totally.
to do that.
Me too.
And we'll share with everyone listening some of the information about some of your work. And I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rina. This was so just like I'm lit up. I'm lit up. First off, you're an amazing question asker, and that's a real skill. And also I just want to like reflect back to you the work that you're doing in the world and the light that you're bringing down through your vessel is just like what the world needs now more than ever. So just like keep being you because you're perfect and keep shining your light. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.